Welcome back, everybody. I am your host, Sam Tate. This is the Orange Card, Blue Card podcast, and I am joined by the latest person to qualify for the Hero League Championships, Zach Pasley. Zach, thanks for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me.
I was super excited to find out in the Discord that you had qualified, and that is the first thing I really kind of want to focus on. But I think we should start all the way back at the beginning. Let's give people a little bit of background info on you. First of all, tell me, were you brand new with MHA or had you played UNIVERSUS before?
Yes, I have been playing before. I started, it was actually the day after the day after Quan Chi 1 got banned.
Okay.
So
the first time or the second?
The first one. So I barely knew anything about it. I showed up like, oh yeah, I guess I can't play this character. I had heard he was super impressive, and I was like, okay, cool. The very first deck I played against, though, was Liu Kang deck, and I was like, how could anything possibly be more broken than this?
Right. I think power level wise, Liu Kang was definitely up there, if not better. But Quan Chi was like breaking basic tenets of the game by using a once per turn ability, twice per turn, and stuff like that. So I could definitely understand that. So
yeah, there's a little bit of a rough introduction to going up against what was the next most busted deck at the time.
Right. So I remember seeing your name throughout the COVID days, playing in online Legendary Wolf Games weeklies, playing TTS events, retro events, things like that. But let's fast forward a bit to My Hero Academia. Were you playing in like all the online events? Were you playing in like the first ever regional and things like that?
Yeah, so I pretty much I did like a couple of like when Jask was in the Wednesday events. Once daylight savings happened, though, it ended up being that because since Arizona we don't do it, so it messed up the time slot for me where they were starting an hour before I got off of work. So I only had done like a few of those in the beginning, but otherwise I think I did. Other than like one provisional, I'm pretty sure I entered every like the major online events that they were doing.
Okay, awesome. And how well did you do in those? Did you have fun?
I had fun. I made top 16 twice, and I think that was it.
What characters did you play?
So the times I did good, I had one where I was playing May, where it was just playing. I guess we'll get to that later, but it was the exact same deck as what I played in Vegas. And then one time I did a Staff Strike Jiro deck. That was actually, I didn't beat Swiss Champ that time, so I did really good that time, just super high rolling it. But I tried to
the Staff Strike Jiro deck.
As far as like the online events, I tried to play a different deck every single time just to get like a good variety of like what can all the different characters do. Never really did like terrible in any of the events, but it was just for the most part I was like getting like top 64-ish on like every single event.
Right, which that's respectable. Never O2 dropping is
right.
Accolade in and of itself, in my opinion. Though I do try not to be results oriented, but it is what it is. So you touched on it a little bit. Let's flash forward because I think this is where your story really kind of begins. Is the Vegas regional license exam. It was the first license exam with Set 2 being legal. It was, I believe, the first in-person regional license exam. I might be wrong on that one.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, but it was definitely the first one I went to in person. So, then on top of that, there was one deck that showed up in the top cuts that I don't think was on too many people's radars, but some pretty notable players were on it, and that was Mei Hatsumi, but most notably, you were on the all symbol, not the life symbol, which I think pretty much all the other Mei Hatsumis were on. Tell me a little bit about that deck. Tell me about the decisions to how did we arrive at Mei Hatsumi, and even more so, the all symbol.
So it actually kind of started with wanting to do the all symbol version right away. I just really liked what Unwavering Slash does with her, and can't play this deck anymore, but it just felt super nice that like if on normally her turn twos aren't really that impressive because you only have one box of babies out if you were going first or you'll have 2 if you're going second, but now you're already pretty far behind anyway. But just to be able to, on turn 2, play Unwavering Slash as your only attack, now you're going to draw 2 cards off of it, potentially get another asset out, and like you actually get real board presence immediately going into the game here. That was just like the very first thing I wanted to be doing, and then from there, I felt like all in general was kind of getting a bad rap for like what its abilities would be in the game. It actually has a lot of defensive capabilities. Being able to do Specialist of Sound and Spooky on attack will just completely nullify something without you even having to use any resources from your hand. Just tap 2 foundations and that's 1 attack done. Was really nice. Yeah. Being able to combine that also with challenging the fake, so it's now you can potentially make it be like a 1 or 0 damage attack, and you also didn't block it, so minus 2 to their next check. But yeah, I feel like in the long run, Life was definitely the better symbol to go with her, but I just found the all version to be really fun of like how explosive it can be if you get the right resources early in the game and just go off on it, because like you could get to points where like you have like 9 assets out or something, and like all of a sudden now if I play 3 attacks, every single one of them's for lethal, so you better be able to full block every one of them.
Yeah. It so I played Ochako at that event, and I actually did play against a Mei Hatsumi on the all symbol, played by Ben Lambright, and so that was my only real exposure to it. I didn't really get to play against any of the Life versions, and I struggled because I would draw like 1-0 gravity lift. I had like no real stat pump yet, or maybe I have like a tight lipped, a self sacrifice, right? And I'm like, do I really want to just flip a foundation to deal 1 damage into Spooky plus Specialist? That was something that like I legitimately had struggled to get over. So it definitely had some cool tricks, but the all-star of that deck was by far and away Unwavering Slash.
Yeah, absolutely.
That the all symbol version definitely felt like it had a bit more of an aggressive tempo to it. Did you feel that way, where it was less of like
it felt that way, because like you still had to like kind of spend the first like 2 or 3 turns just trying to build up a wall so that you're not going to get crushed immediately, because you did need to have a few turns like actually have an offense. But once you got to the point where you had like, if I had 3 or 4 copies of Box of Babies out and I drew enough attacks, I'm going all in every single time.
Yeah, and so I remember from that event you had or at least it was a meme that got posted after the event where the interviewers were talking about like, tell us about the meta read, where you could tell that set 2 was going to be a slower format, which I felt like the Life symbol maze definitely took advantage of. But if you go back and watch your games on stream, you're slinging it, man. There's orange cards coming out. It's, was it 2-3 foundations we're trying to take Tim Keefe out, because you're on that clock and the bird does not give you much time to set up at all.
And if I checked 1-5 somewhere in that string, then maybe it would have happened. I think that was like 4 3s in a row or something.
Yeah, it was pretty rough to watch. If you, I don't know if you had them in the deck, but if you could go back and just like jam 4 copies of Advice for Winners in.
Yeah, that actually would have been really helpful.
That would have been pretty helpful.
Which is funny, because now whenever I play the Staff Strike Jiro deck, like that's the very first thing I did was just put 4 copies of Advice for Winners in there, because in that deck you absolutely have to have it. But now that I'm thinking about it, I played Staff Strike in the May deck also, so I don't know why I didn't think it was as valuable in her.
Yeah. I really dig the effect, but like most of the decks I want to build, especially on those symbols, are running like 4 2-checks or more. Or like Advice Winners has Evil, and as much as I hate to say it, Gale Force Punch is a very a big pet card for me. So I actually end up don't running that card as much as in my head it's like a 4x staple.
Yeah.
I've
never ran in a deck that has 2 checks in it, but I can imagine that feeling terrible if you recheck and now you checked worse because of it.
Or even just you check an actual 2 and you're like, man, if this was a 3, I could get out of it. So
yeah,
Which, that's a lot of confirmation bias. We might be able to probably do a whole podcast on card gamers who feel something rather than actually doing the science. In the main My Hero Discord throughout the day, there was a lot of talk of like people who figure out the format versus how solved could something be, and you know, as far as actual details down to the letter of the deck, maybe not. Maybe there's, you know, like I'm rambling now, but if you've ever seen the Jwitz video for Pokemon, the Set 1 Pokemon, Jason Klaczynski goes back to a 30-year-old card game format and finds a nearly unbeatable deck using commons that are just stall deck cards, right? So it has like a weird answer for everything in a random box of commons. So possibly we might look back at this 10 years later and go, wow, actually, I don't know, Mezzo Shoji 1 was unbeatable. but I think I trust the Kevin Brobergs and the Tim Keefes of the world right now. So if we talk about the Vegas event with Mei Hatsumi, you end up getting second place there, right?
Yeah.
And so that's good for, I think, 18 regional?
Yeah, so that was 18 points.
Right. And so, which again, just I can't understate how heartbreaking it was to watch like the just multiple 3 checks over and over and over, right? Because, you know, I thought the Mei Hatsumi deck was pretty hype. I absolutely hate Sugar Rush. I detest that card. The Tokoyami deck running hot with it was like everything I was afraid of for set 2.
Yeah.
You know, like the blessing of Momo becoming popular immediately after that was something everyone else hated. But I was like, look, man, it's either this or it's fire Tokoyami. Like, can we please? Can you not ruin this for me? But so after that event, you're sitting on those 18 points. Do you get any more regional license exam points throughout the rest of the year?
So the only thing that I ended up doing was the very last event, the online nationals. I got 1 point.
Yeah, which is top 32, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so which is the same number of points I got, and so it after that we get the list of the 32 people. Everyone's trying to figure it out. There's a couple names that had to get omitted, a couple of band players that were on the list that got erased from the list. There's a couple people who can't make it. But throughout the first version of the list, you're not on it, right?
Right.
And if you guys go back and look on the Dear Santa stream, Mayonesa in the Discord posts on the Dear Santa forum, Dear Santa, all I want for Christmas is one more HLC point.
Yes.
And that would have, of course, because I guess I kind of glossed over this. At this point, you're tied, right? You're tied with like 2 or 3 other people. I think. Who are you tied with?
So Daniel was the one who was up right above me. So it was him, and then Andrew DeVale, I believe, was the other one.
Yeah, Andrew Duvall, DBS,
and
back-to-back DBS world champion or national champion, or I don't even know if it's different for their game. For our game, it's functionally the same, or used to be.
And I didn't even realize until like we already were like when people were starting to set up like their own version of what the list was, because Jasco hadn't like published what the rankings were or anything. I didn't realize what the tiebreakers were. I thought that the fact that I got second place in an event, that automatically would put me above everybody else. But apparently the first tiebreaker was who did the best at nationals, which that was ended up being Daniel. So he was one step above me. Then it was who got the best in any events, which puts me above Andrew.
Right, yeah. So, which, man, it's such a wild ride because we spent so much time. You know, I was with 2 or 3 different people who had their own versions of lists, right? Had their own lists, and they're conspiring, and like they come to the same conclusions. And they also, I believe, at that time, we also believed that you had the tiebreaker because of, you know, highest placement overall, which would have been second place. And so, and it's really weird because I'm a huge fan of Daniel. You know, I'm a huge fan of Dan Nelson because He is a new head who is down to play really complex, really in-depth decks. Mm-hmm. But he also respects when Asui is just fucking bonkers.
Right.
He's also down to just respect the raw power of Asui and Tokoyami. And I've seen him play almost exclusively 7-handers, which is like what I'm about. I just can't play 6-handers, man. I don't know how to do it. Mm-hmm. So was there anything... Was it people on the internet love drama. Was it testy at locals when Dan got his invite? Was it like a huge shocker for you guys?
It's not going to be a very exciting story. No, so when originally we had the list out, and we saw that the two of us were the top ones, we both were just like, okay, we have to just somehow something's got to happen here. I think Jose made a joke about how he's gonna sabotage the entire country so that just none of them can come over. We're like, okay, we'll figure out some way. There's got to be at least 2 people who won't be able to make it. Which we kept saying that, but I didn't really believe it, to be honest. So then, something ends up happening. Daniel does end up getting an invite. But no, I was happy for him at the time. It's great that he got to make it. I would have liked if I also got to make it back then, but but no, I was happy for him, and he actually has been not at locals for quite a while anyway, because he's been going to see family and stuff. So,
right.
But
yeah, I was playing games with him. He was on a laptop at his family's house, just a couple days ago. And it was a struggle watching him drag cards all over the place.
Oh, gee.
But yeah, so when did you guys find out what the actual tiebreaker was? Because that had to be a little confusing, right?
So I ended up finding out from during day 2 of the online nationals, when we were just trying to get the list together for where we currently at. Because the other thing that I found out in hindsight, so me and Daniel both lost to Ben Lambright. I lost on round 1. He lost on round 2. If I had beat Ben, then if we knew how the points were going to work out, I could have just scooped to Daniel, and we both would have made it on points.
Oh,
so he would have made it for me.
I
said, yeah, there's no way to have known that at the time, but it was just this weird thing. I already knew that I was so close to making it, but I didn't realize how close I was. That it was literally just, if I got one more point, and then Daniel's points wouldn't even have mattered at that point.
Yeah, because if you've got the tiebreaker, but it... excuse me, because it would have been a pretty big gamble to still require the number of people who essentially couldn't make it to the Hero League Championship, because I believe now the list is 3 people different from the first original list that was given out, if I'm not mistaken. But again, they haven't published a second list, so I'm not 100%. Maybe it's only 2. But I heard a rumor that 2 people from Europe...
Yeah, that's what I was hearing, is that there's 2. So I don't know. I haven't heard if Andrew also got an invite, but yeah, I would assume, as long as all of our numbers are correct, because I still don't think Jasco ever published an official list of what everybody's points were. So assuming that we are correct on what it is, I'm pretty sure he would be the next one on the list.
Yeah, and so... and then, of course, if it's... if there's somehow another tie, because it would be a 4-way tie at 18 points at this point, or 19 points, then we'd have to look at who is he tied with, because I believe Andrew Duvall did not make top 32 at Nats. And
yeah, I don't think so.
If it comes down to just a random placement between 2 people who, I don't, go 3-3 and drop or something, that could be absolutely wild, right?
Oh, yeah.
Your choice to drop at Nationals at a record where you can't make top cuts that could have actually affected your tiebreakers for, the 35th spot is, the actual reason I don't like the system. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm fine with, the invites and stuff are cool. I love the idea of, a circuit where I gain points, because that way... Even if I don't win, I get something out of this event, right? I love the idea of rewarding people for showing up and doing well, even if they don't win. I'm super down for that. But at the same time, trying to do the bracketology, trying to figure out the math, trying to figure out who you can scoop to. Like you were talking about, if you knew, if you had future sight and knew you could scoop to Daniel, was that something you had kind of dealt with? Because you said you showed up and you had fun at all these events, but was there ever like I guess anxiety around trying to perform as well as you did at the Vegas event, because that was the first in person?
Yeah, because not knowing exactly how the points were going to work out, I had pretty much determined that if I did like at least top 4 one more time, that I should have been for sure in at that point. So I probably did have quite a bit of pressure on myself for it. A lot of the provisionals, I was playing just kind of like what I thought would be a fun deck for a lot of them, but for a lot of the regionals, I was trying to play like what I thought at the time was going to be the meta call. Like I was playing Hiroshima 2 for quite a bit. But yeah, I think it did kind of put a decent amount of pressure on myself, and in sort of like an unexpected way, because I had no idea that May deck was going to do as good as it did. Like, I was just happy that I got top cuts at all in that event, and then for it to actually get second place was just beyond what I thought it was ever going to do. So I kind of went from being like, I don't say casual, but like playing more for just like the fun of the event itself, to then suddenly now I'm like actually caring about whether or not I can make it to the HLC. Was a bit of a shock for me. Like now I actually care about every single one of these events that I'm playing in.
Yeah, it's tough because for the most part we've been playing for bragging rights, right? For a while, especially with when you had joined with the game, we hit the COVID pandemic pretty quickly after, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Not a ton of events to really grind on before that. And so this has been the first time that there is a huge prize. There is an immense prize on the line. Does that really change your approach to going to the HLC? I have to imagine it's somewhat different than like your preparation for a regional, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's also kind of, I have to kind of kick it in gear here now, because since I didn't think I was going to make it until this week, I've for the last like months or so, I've been playing stupid stuff like a Mil Nezu deck or
day one. That's your day one deck, Mil Nezu.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
You get to see every card in their deck.
Or I was playing Tokoyami too, but I built that deck the day before the new bands came out, and like I don't even think that deck's playable. Even as a joke deck, I don't think that deck is playable now without Crow and Frog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to what the current meta is right now, so I'm going to have to do a lot of research really quickly to figure out what I'm going to be doing.
Okay, yeah. Do you have any leads so far? Anything that sticks out as something you might want to start off the bat with?
Not really sure. I know I want to play for day one, something that's going to end the game quickly, because I feel like with it not mattering as much exactly how well you do, but like trying to get, like if you could get first seed, obviously that'd be the most preferable, because then you're going to be going first all day two. But like, I feel like because of like it being low stakes ish, trying to play something that like could just maybe high roll its way through would be the best. Like maybe playing like the Sapphire Giro deck or something that just, if the deck works out for you, you're gonna just crush everybody on turn 2. But for day 2, I think I want to try to look more into like playing something that's going to be a little bit more defensive, like actually have interaction with the opponent.
Yeah, I do keep seeing a comment on Facebook a lot about, and even in the Dear Santa list, right? People talked about wanting more interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with that because I think that there is relatively the same amount of interaction that you would get from 3 sets of standard. Obviously standard's got so much more stuff, right? But if you just take like the last 3 sets that were printed for standard and like the first 3 for My Hero, excuse me, I think that you will find a similar amount. It's just like very heavily costed compared to the stuff that was printed. So I think I think maybe we need to just kind of nut up a bit and start playing more copies of Taiyaki Fanatic, maybe. But
no, that card's terrible. We don't play that card.
The card is pretty bad. It's so sad. Like, a lot of the things that you really need to save your cards like Taiyaki Fanatic or even like a Night Watch for are typically things that you can build like a better deck around, I feel. So when you're looking for a deck that interacts with the opponent more, what decks are you thinking of when you say that?
Mainly maybe not necessarily like interact with the opponent more. I'm more just thinking like I want something that I for sure am going to live turn 3 or turn 4. So I'm thinking like a Mineta or a Momo or something. Like I just want to make it so that no matter what, you're not going to turn to me.
Okay.
So something that has either has a little more health or just something that can play defense a little bit better, so that I'm not going to just get completely blown out and show up to Vegas and then leave on round 1 5 minutes into the game.
If there's any character that has like a guaranteed turn 3, I think it's still Kirishima 2. I cannot advise playing post errata Kirishima 2, but a lot of people are still high on him. A lot of people have put him still like up in the first or second tier. I've seen him in S tier still. Like I've seen people put him still next to Jiro, next to Tokoyami, next to Asui. Let's talk a little bit about the most recent ban list. Where do you think Kirishima kind of falls in the meta now? Do you expect to see him?
I've kind of been telling a lot of people that Kirishima obviously was a very good character, but I don't know how much he was like really that broken versus it's just the Earth symbol itself got a huge buff in this set. I really feel like a lot of these Kirishima decks, you could just play that exact same deck, but play it with like Cementos or Sato or something, and like not very much changes with it.
True, I wouldn't say much changes, but do you think that those are strictly better versions of them?
I mean, they're not strictly, like, now that Kirishima has been nerfed, maybe they are, but I just feel like it was more just like he was, like, the most generically good version of all those decks. Like, there was no reason not to play him. But a lot of those characters, I think, would still, if there wasn't Kirishima as an option, all of those characters would have been viable, I feel like.
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing is the Earth symbol is just really good at, like, so, I think that, and this is something I fall for a lot, I'm calling myself out with this, but I think that the easiest way to play offense in this game, the most surefire, like, can't fuck this up way, is hand taxing. It is just literally playing more attacks than my opponent has blocks.
Right.
It's why the Momo deck is so good, because it has more blocks than you have attacks a lot of the time.
Right.
And there's... The whole time, a lot of decks have been able to pass them, although, again, Momo just does such a good job at passing those block checks, being able to actually block all those attacks. But my take was always that Kirishima gets to play more of those Earth cards. It is the Earth symbol card quality is so high, and the cards that do the best on the Earth symbol are the cards that ramp and let you play more cards. And then Kirishima's the best at that. And then, of course, the linchpin on his defensive response means you're going to get at least 2 turns to do all that cycling and drawing and readying. And so he was just really the most consistent, like in a very generic, basic card game way.
Right.
So with that being said, how do you feel about the Crow and Frog / Stronger in Darkness bands? Do you think that affects Tokoyami a whole lot?
Well, at the very least, it'll make him not as consistent. I think it was... I didn't realize until playing against somebody doing this how disgusting it was that you could play Crow and Frog, use Petty Squabble to discard 2, draw 2, and then do it again on your next attack because you just re-ready it. The first time that happened to me, I was like, wow, this is absolutely insane. They should not have printed this card. And it's not even Petty Squabble that's the problem. It was entirely Crow and Frog that's the problem here.
Right. You're not ever really going to get to ready your character outside of that card. So
I still think Tokoyami's going to be really good. He's just not going to do it turn 2 every single game now. What I'm curious what's going to be happening is what's going to be the symbol now, because like Chaos can still do release for their 0 diffs, but like does Fire even have like anything you could do that's a good playable zero diff? Like, are you just not forced to play chaos, even if that wasn't what you were originally planning on with him?
You were like already forced to play keen observation just for the block. Like, the last time I played Fire Tokoyami, I think I put in 2 copies of Turn to Dust instead of Ice Wall, even though I still had Frigid Heat Wave, just because I wanted a stun 2 attack that like did something with keen observation.
Something with it, yeah.
Like, it was not the right call, but, you know, it is what it is. I definitely didn't need more mid blocks in Tokoyami, I can tell you that right now. And so, now, with that card gone, the Tokoyami decks are starved for high blocks. I don't know if you guys have looked at the UVS Ultra breakdown of a lot of these Tokoyami Chaos decks. They're like 21 low blocks and like 16 high blocks at best. We lost 4 of them, our 4 most playable, maybe not the best at blocking, but our most, you know, playable zero diff high blocks. So kind of adjusting for that, compensating for that loss might be a little tough, but
it's kind of interesting for the mirror match then, because they also lost one of their high attacks. So
right,
like it kind of ended up going both ways here. Like, you're losing highs on both ends of it. So do you make like a huge, like, are you trying to find like just another low attack, like a low attack with a high block or something to balance things out?
I think, yeah, my adjustments were to play Electric Jolts, which are high blocks, and to play the full set of Twisting Azure Inferno. Because Twisting Azure kind of fits out, which I didn't like originally, mind you. I actually did not like drawing it very often when I played in online nets. And I still hate drawing like 2 copies of it now. But as far as needing to pass all these checks to have all these floating stats, you know, Tokoyami's biggest game plan is he passes all of his checks and he has consistent stat, you know, he has floating stats that apply to everything. So more Azure Inferno kind of fills that role, but you're never going to get the power of readying your character again, unfortunately. Right. Well, at least not in this format. So I think that losing the ability to, like you said, do the double petty squabble or pivot, like, because Crow and Frog was just so free. It was so hard to recognize. If a Tokoyami goes in with Twisting Azure Inferno and plays 2 Summon Dark Shadows, you feel pretty good that he's either giving up too many resources to stop now, or he's going to go balls to the wall, right? So, let's talk about Asui, because a lot of people have said that the Crow and Frog ban does hurt Asui a little bit, but of course doesn't kill her. How do you feel about that deck being affected by it?
So that was one of the decks that I originally considered playing for Nationals, was Water Asui. In the end, I think I only had like 2 copies of Crow and Frog that I even was playing in that deck. It really isn't the necessary card for that deck anymore. Like, it was nice to have, but like, she really doesn't need that. I don't know if it really affects her that much, other than just you have to find some other busted card to put in the deck instead. I was getting a lot of value out of just abusing. I can't remember what either of these cards are called now. The Sludge Monster attack, where it's where you get to ready one of your foundations, and then the Todoroki, is it Freezer Burn? I think it's called. It does the same thing.
Yes, Freezer Burn lets your rival pick, but spoiler,
it's gonna be there's ways you can make it where they don't have much of a choice.
Between you know, just like the fact that she already passes all of her checks and just having 1 copy of Feeling Cute, you're going to get to ready something that you specifically want to 90% of the time. I remember the last time an Asui checked poorly against me while playing Crow and Frog, they blew up Rescue Completed to ready the 2 face downs, so the only thing left was Irrefutable. And I'm like, I guess I'll just ready Irrefutable for the 3rd time this fucking turn, like, you know? So yeah, I'm 100% with you. I, of course, lost to Water Asui playing 0 copies of Crow and Frog at Online Nationals. So the deck that qualified at the online event didn't even play it at all. So which, of course, there's certain levels of variance, certain player preference, things like that. But, you know, watching Freezer Burn get to ready the correct thing so often, and not having the restriction that Crow and Frog does, and not having like an extra difficulty, and also having a better attack zone, and also having a better block zone, and also it mills to set up Frigid Heat Wave and Selfish. Like, it's hard for me to feel like you weren't supposed to just swap in Freezer Burns for every copy of Crow and Frog, right?
Yeah. 'Cause a lot of when I was like just doing test runs with it, unless I was drawing it, like if it was I open the turn with the Crow and Frog, sometimes I would just not even play it because like if I draw into a Crow and Frog later in the turn, I didn't want it over just playing another Freezer Burn instead.
Yeah, I talked to Brandon Jones about that. He's the one who beat me in top 16 and qualified with us. So that's exactly his take. Was so much of my offense is based on cards like Exhausted exclamation being readied and drawing me more cards. When will I ever want to play this on a 6?
Right.
You know, if I'm going to play a card on a 6, it's going to have to be a stun 2 attack, or it's going to have to draw me more cards, or, you know, it should be doing a whole hell of a lot more work than just being a retroactive 4 difficulty at that point. So, also, we, of course, because she kicks cards from her card pool, you know, almost like tons of other decks run it for that anti-progressive difficulty, and she, of course, is just anti-progressive difficulty all over. So it was not the biggest hit to that deck. Let's talk a little bit about the one deck that had really good results, but essentially didn't get touched at all. Or I can't think of. I guess the last time we got touched was back with Unwavering Slash, and that's Jiro. What's your thoughts on Jiro? This is a weirdly contested character, I think.
So it's kind of weird for me. I've actually never played the version of Jiro that everybody else likes. I only have ever played the Staff Strike version of her, just because of I just find it fun. I guess in a way, like that's kind of like that's my Timmy deck of like I want to see the numbers get as big as they possibly can, and that's the deck that will do it. Yeah. So I've actually never even attempted playing the air version of her before, but that's definitely one that I need to be looking at because that. From like, if you want to just go like completely results oriented, that's the best performing deck that did not get touched at all from the bans.
Yeah, and then so you said you never thought about playing Air Jiro though, but did that change at all when Seizing the Advantage came out?
It should have, but yeah, that was one of the things. Like when Seizing the Advantage came out, that was one of my first thoughts was how insane that is in her. I just didn't touch it at the time because I don't really have a good reason for it. I just wasn't really kind of like thinking about it. That being a thing I wanted to be playing.
You just knew in your heart of hearts that it's a second place deck,
right?
we need a first place deck. Yeah, I have always. How do I put this? I have always thought that the Staff Strike Jiro deck is a little bit better. I think the points of interaction against the Staff Strike decks are like difficult because you can start with a Staff Strike. You know, you can start with Weapon Foundation or Asset into a Foundation into Staff Strike. So typically combo decks or combo keyword decks really, they get hurt by card pool clogging and by Faith Shield and things like that. And against Jiro, card pool clogging after they hit the Staff Strike enhance is not helping. It does
not matter at all.
It's so like, yeah, Cheerful Uppercut is a full block on Staff Strike, but I think you just kind of expect your first Staff Strike to get blocked at 9 damage, 4 mid for 9, right? It's kind of how it's gonna go. And then of course, like I got eliminated by Jose Narono playing Staff Strike Jiro in Orlando. That was like by far my worst matchup is Denki because he has self-sacrifice for damage reduction. He's got +1 low blocks for indiscriminate, and most of all, this is something I don't think many people realize with Jiro. She plays the double jab pummel package, but if you play double jab pummel against her, she gets to know if she blocks it or not.
Oh, that's true.
If she just peeks 2 5s on top, she just gets to know that she gets to block it. So all of this, you know, it's an unblockable card. You don't block
right.
it. Like, it goes out the window with the character who's going to look at those two. So Every time I had latent skill, he was just going to look at what I was going to draw. Every time I had a double jab, right? So that was like a hurdle for me. But the biggest thing was once that offense gets rolling, I don't know what actually stops it besides just night watching Staff Strike or dealing with the physical Staff Strike combo. What you've played it though? What do you think like some of the weaknesses of that build are?
Mainly it's just there's like specific characters that it really struggles against. So like Toru 2, you can do it, but you need a minimum of 8 foundations, and you have to check a 5 both times for it to even be possible to do it. One of my locals really likes playing Kurogiri, or like he'll at least put it in the sideboard for some of his decks. So like that's another rough one of like you have to, at the minimum, you need 2 copies of Staff Strike to even attempt to be able to get them, and you still have to play it twice both times before you even get started on your real turn. Other than that, a lot of it is just the deck sometimes will say no to you. Like,
right.
At least the version of it I play, it's so all in on doing the Staff Strike combo that if I check 3 of them by turn 2, I have to probably just mill through my entire deck to cycle it and start all over here because it's not killing you without Staff Strike.
Yeah, I definitely don't think I've ever seen a Staff Strike Jiro even attempt to kill me without playing at least 2 copies of Staff Strike in the chain. And it's super funny when you see like on the very first one they're using all their quick creations to like to dig for more cards,
right.
The draw 5 Staff Strike. Really quick, can you tell me off the top of your head, do you know what the most cards you've drawn off a single Staff Strike enhances?
I think I've done 8 one time.
It's just a whole new hand.
So I have had one time where I wasn't really paying attention to exactly how far into the deck I had already gone, and I ended up milling myself on turn 3. And it was just because all the cards were in my hand at the time.
I hate to say it, but you deserve it for playing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So if you were going to take Staff Strike, hypothetically, if you were going to take Staff Strike Jiro to the World Championship, for day one, let's say for day one, do you think you would run into those specific bad matchups? Like, what are the odds you think you would actually fight a Toru 2 maybe out of the sideboard, but who's bringing Kurogiri?
For day one, that's why I feel like that's what I would like to play for day one is something like that, because you probably won't run into that. The issue is that day 2, if everybody saw that's what you're playing and they know that they're playing against you, which I guess we still don't even know exactly how the format's working for this, but I'm assuming that we don't decide what deck we're playing until like right before day 2 starts. So if they know you've been playing this, then now that might influence their decision on what they want to bring if they're the one that you're going up against round 1.
Yeah, I've heard, some murmurings here and there. I'm friends with quite a few of the people who have qualified and are getting the emails, and so I've pretty much just gotten like secondhand conversations in Discord about there's like specific deck list submission deadlines, and it looks like you'll have time between the 2 days to pick it. I think it would be a mistake to make people submit their day 2 deck before they know what their seeding is, what their placement is, right? Because
to me, it just really if you have to decide both decks before day 1 even starts, then what's even the point of it being you can play 2 different decks?
Yeah, and what's the likelihood I'm gonna decide to play a second deck? I should just play the best deck twice, right? Like,
right.
I would basically just be admitting, like, yeah, if I'm locked into I'm just admitting that one of these decks is sillier or something. Like, one of these decks is better at me rolling dice, and the other deck is me hoping I did well rolling dice the day before. Yeah. So that it wouldn't make sense, but I wouldn't rule anything out because nothing is, not a whole lot at least, is set in stone. We talked a little bit about your path to the HLC. We've talked a little bit about what you might expect, like what are the top dogs and things like that. Talk to me a little bit about, I guess, anti-meta rogue decks? Are there any rogue decks you're expecting to see day 1 or day 2? Maybe like someone's pet deck that you're expecting to see get brought out?
Well, I'm assuming Dobby is going to be showing up.
Man, that guy feels so much pressure to play Dobby, and I tell him every time, fuck it, dude, play what you want, play play what you think will take home the bacon. Like, he should feel absolutely zero pressure to play Dobby.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you want to even call it a rogue deck at this point, but like I would assume at least a couple of them are going to be showing up as Momo.
Okay.
Beyond that, I haven't really put a whole lot of thought yet into like what exactly am I expecting. I kind of feel like at least half of them are going to show up with just the usual what you expect to see, like Jiros, Tokiyami, probably some Asuis and Ojiros. I would assume at least half of them are going to be playing something that's not going to be too out there. I don't know how much I want to plan for like specifically rogue decks that I'm thinking are going to be showing up, because there's so many possibilities that like it's impossible. You can't test for all of them, obviously.
I think by definition a rogue deck is one that you don't test for.
Yeah, right.
I think by definition a rogue deck is one that you're not teching against, because if it's a known quantity and you're expecting it, where's the rogue part? Is it just small numbers? Like that's not a rogue deck. That's just a bad deck being played by good players. So, it's something I think I expect day 1 is Ochako 2. That's a character that's been a little quiet. We saw a bunch of it in Oceania. I think we saw some of it with UK. Well, we didn't see it with UK, but you get what I mean. Like, I think there was some of it showing up in the UK, and so I think with a little bit dialed back on the number of characters who are going to actually do 33 damage to you turn 2, Tokoyami has to have a little bit better of a hand to pull it off. I would expect to see Ochako 2 come back out of the forefront, at least on day 1, because like you said, that's a deck where you can just kind of get it over with, right?
Right.
It's also the kind of deck where if you're playing Villainous Wayla, you get a lot of information if they don't have the right blocks out.
True.
What do you think the likelihood or the number of players who are going to play the same deck both days are? Because there's got to be at least one.
Right. I'm assuming probably only a few of them will. Even if you're not going to be like super like secretive about what you're going to be playing, I would assume you don't want to just like full on advertise to who your round 1 opponent is. Like, hey, this is the deck I'm playing. Do you want to play this thing that counters it?
Yeah. My call out is everyone who qualified playing Ojiro 2 is going to play Ojiro 2 both days.
Okay.
I think the Ojiro 2 players have like honed their Ojiro 2 deck. They have folded it over 1,000 times like the finest Nippon steel, and they have curated it to the exact ratios and the exact card draw that they want. And they're playing like I would have never expected Missouri Smash, my dude.
Oh, right.
I love that card. I play that card in almost every all-symbol deck I play. I call it reverse capture net. It is inverse inverse capture net for me. And so, like, I am so down to play that card. Watching someone actually just steamroll Jose for like one game with it blew my mind, because I never fucking hit with that card.
Yeah.
I have played that card after stun 2 attacks so often. I have put Eraserhead speed on it. I've put Momo speed on it. I've put +2 speed on it in so many ways. I guess +3 speed was actually just the number.
That's the magic number, apparently.
So that's one I expect to see. I expect to see people who played Jiro who qualify with Jiro probably stick with it for at least one of the days.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine like Tim Keefe and the Brobergs are going to play multiple decks, just because you touched on it a little bit earlier. I think it's almost kind of a tradition. Even if you're a character specialist, you play like different symbols, you play different builds at different events. It's not super common, I think I've seen in this game, where players get consistent results playing the same deck over and over, right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of, like, for me, it's just the fact that, like, I never want to play the same deck twice because there's so many decks I actually do want to play.
Right.
Recently, it's actually been the opposite, though, where I'm just, like, hopping from deck to deck trying to find one that I really want to play. The last deck I really loved playing was, like, Danky with Unwavering Slash. So
yeah.
That deck was just kind of unfair, though, for the format. But, like, has there been a deck throughout My Hero that you're just, like, in love with? It's just, like, your favorite go-to number one deck? Or are you just bouncing around all the different things?
Well, it was May, but...
May with it's Unwavering
Yeah,
Slash,
with Unwavering
right?
Slash. Yeah, I think that's just the thing. I just really like Unwavering Slash. I was playing Unwavering Slash with Kirishima 1 back in set 1 meta, actually, so... It was just a way to re-ready the coordinate effort so I could do it 2 times a turn.
Yep. I was going to say Chris Nixon, I believe. I always get it confused. I'm so terrible with the poor Omaha guys' names because I just don't interact with them too much. And there's Richard Svoboda? There's a V in there somewhere. I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name. And then Chris Nixon. I'm sorry to mix those two names up. Both previous world champions, both on cardboard. So when I played against Chris Nixon's Kirishima, he hit me with that. They're the good symbol, Unwavering Slash, get the earphone jack, ready the coordinated, and I was just like, man, this is a nightmare. Like, how am I ever supposed to, like, beat this much value being generated by, like, basically 2 cards, you know?
Right.
The fact that, like, Unwavering can ready it, the fact that earphone jack can ready it, the fact that, like, it draws a card on its own. It's already just, like, super good for a 5-hander. Was just, like, so tough to deal with. So I was a little surprised when that wasn't the version that won that first provisional. But Unwavering Slash did have to go away. It did commit many crimes. It definitely did things wrong.
And I'm just glad it got banned before the first standard event because I know a lot of people hated the Twisted Azure deck that was going around, but you would have that was nothing compared to what you could have done with Unwavering Slash, like playing the mill Aswell deck that just never lets an attack resolve.
Yeah, well, in fairness, I believe they also banned Kali Yuga, right?
Oh, did they?
Not? Oh no, they banned Meteor. They banned Meteor to not enable that too, because Meteor, even with a cost, so to speak, it was able to enable that. But I always thought they should just ban, like, you have a combo, right? So for those who don't know, just a quick little update. The reason it got banned is because there's assets that say commit, add this card, add an attack to your hand, basically, so you can abort it. So the combo goes, you play Unwavering Slash, you build this asset, you commit it, you add Unwavering back to your hand. And during that attack, you make your opponent mill 3 cards. Then you play it again, then you build a second copy of that asset. It blows up the first one because it's unique. You get to choose. Then you commit it, you pick it back up, ad infinitum, right? The old version cost you 1 foundation for every time you wanted to do it, but it was still, like, super annoying to, like, let that go. And to me, you have that same asset that is able to do this combo with Meteor. It's able to do it with Unwavering Slash. It's able to do it technically with multiple copies of I Shall Save Humanity, right? Like, if you have ways to just keep drudging that back up. So to me, that would be the card to go after, maybe. Maybe the card that pairs with multiple cards to do this, but...
Yeah.
You know, I was happy to see some bands come out before Standard at the very least. Man, Standard seems like such a fever dream.
Right.
The decks that got played at the Standard Sunset were nothing like what I expected. I did not expect Bakugo 2 to be the face of the Twisting Azure deck, like, just because it has, the death symbol? And
that's all it was, just the symbols it had on it.
It was just, we need 7-hander with these symbols, and it's the only legal one. Because that deck's not playing any combo.
No.
Combo enhances ever, right?
No.
And Twisting Asher's not a Fury or powerful.
And the only reason they even cared about Deaths was just because maybe you need Bang if they're playing a character that, like if they're playing like Kuwabara or something.
Oh yeah, I also kind of expected it to. Once I found out it had Death, I expected Taguro Brothers. Hit any reset. Can you imagine? You try to reset it and they're like, actually 2 more damage.
Nope. Yeah, and I'm gonna draw another card.
And I'll draw another card. I never expected the Takeda deck. I think Bromley was a little upset because he's a big fan of Takeda.
Yeah, I was a little bit too, because that was one of the other decks I was thinking about. Was like, so in Retro, I was really big on doing the Trinity Geyser Takedas, and Staff Strike is like a worse version of it, but maybe it would have actually worked out.
So that's true. Yeah, and you did. Was it? It was some kind of standard event where you played like a 76 card Takeda deck with Hellfire, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, that was Broberg's creation, and he was one of the ones commentating for that event, so he couldn't play it. So I took it from him to do that. Nice. That deck was absolutely insane. It had, I think, other than it didn't have a way of doing the fatality, like the instant win. I think other than that, it had like every stupid combo you could possibly do on him.
Yeah, which I'm a big fan of the fatality combo, but it's such a clunky, very clunky combo with the whole desperation thing. It's like, to set up the cards that enable desperation, you might as well just attack them into desperation.
Yeah.
And if you're going to attack them into desperation, you might as well clog their card pool 3 times, stun them 6, put 18 damage on this reversal, just decay things.
Seems totally fair.
Rip a card out of their hand on their turn, I guess. So, I know. I think a couple people were salty because they had really considered Takeda, but they thought that like a combo style attack lineup would be like very interactable, and then nobody was playing very interactable stuff. They were just playing like, I played Nomu Hellfire Impalement. I played against. I had no revokes, by the way. It was really sad. I had no revokes, no Taguros, because I had to borrow stuff from Jacob Monsieur.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, did you like borrow the deck like a minute before the event started?
Yeah, I was trying to put together a shitty Siegfried deck because I wanted to do a meme because it's the closest. I was just trying to build my Terry 1 retro deck with standard cards, basically, as close as I could, and Siegfried's the closest thing. And I couldn't get enough cards put together and to make the deck legal and have a win con, so I just was like, who's got a deck? And then I ended up scooping Clinton Thomas into Top Cuts because I was going to do commentary, and I was like, oh, well, I probably shouldn't be here for Top Cuts all night, but like, I think if I had, because we tied, and I was like, you can just have it. I shouldn't say scoop him in, we tied, but I don't know how you fucking tie with Nomu versus Taisei. Yet here we go. The true answer, I know how we tied. It's because we were joking around the whole time. We were bullshitting and laughing, and we even had to call Nilmerg over because I had to ask her if reviewing a card counts as discarding a card, and she said no, and I was like, I have to appeal to the head judge because it 100% is, which she got right, and as soon as she thought about it, but it was just super funny, like, and so I was very surprised by those decks. I am down to be equally surprised by the Hero League Championship decks.
Yeah.
I think it's harder just because the card pool isn't as deep, right? Like, there's so many characters and so many things to pull from in Standard, but what would be the most surprising thing to you? Like of a deck that is, I don't know, I guess considered playable, because if I say what would be the most surprising deck at the Hero League Championship, you'd probably just name like the worst possible character, right?
That'd be Aoyama 2.
Who?
Aoyama 2.
Interesting. Okay. Excuse me. I think it's funny because Aoyama 2 looks so much like a worse Toga. It looks
the thing that always gets me is that his Enhance is a worse version of what Mina 1 does, because it costs you a health instead of potentially gaining you health to do it, and it has to be on a mid attack.
Right. Oh, and it does have to be mid. I always forget it's locked to mids.
Yeah.
Man, maybe it is worse as I'm thinking, but like, I remember after Orlando, someone showed me an Aoyama 2 list that was very similar to my Denki list, and it was like, long range charge attacks that takes advantage of getting momentum early. And it's, without the once per game, it technically has more legs later, but you're still a 720 on the air symbol. You don't have real shit for defense.
Right.
So, I kind of came around on Aoyama 1 a little bit. I kind of came around on like a consistent +1 speed, and then also like not many characters get momentum as a 7-hander. So like, I was kind of brought around to it, but so Aoyama 2 would be the most surprising.
I think that would be the most surprising.
Yeah.
As far as like something that's like actually like realistic that somebody could potentially do, I know a lot of people when Nezu was previewed, they all kept talking about how like this is potentially a really great deck, but it's going to take forever to learn how to like design the version of that's going to actually be playable. So we've had like 3 months since the character was revealed. So did anybody actually take the time to hammer it out and figure out this is how you play the deck?
Yeah, this is potentially your best opportunity at narrowing the field, right? Like, at worst, people could be playing 32 different characters compared to the entire field of stuff. So, this would be the time to break out your meta call deck, right? Like, this would be the time to start putting in those amount of hours, right, to perfect a deck like that. I would be absolutely excited to see Nezu. I love that character. Sorry, I got stuck reading the chat. Berlander said, "Come play at Big Human on Sunday. I'll show you a solid Nezu deck." Big Human on Sunday. Is that an Arizona thing?
Yeah, that's our locals.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I've seen Berlander's been in the chat before talking about Arizona, and so I figured I should take a trip down there at some point. I really should. I should go down.
Yeah, you should.
Human. I wonder how long, because you guys are on like the west side of Arizona, right?
Yeah, I want to say it's like a 4-hour drive or something.
Okay. That's not too bad. It was a little worse than I was thinking, but maybe we'll get like a Vegas road trip and just come invade and like we'll show up on like a day where you guys have like 10 people, and they'll just be like, yeah, this is like, we'll bring like 6 people from Vegas thinking, oh, we'll be your biggest locals ever, and you'll just be like, yeah, this is half of our biggest locals. Like, you'll get 6 transplants, and it'll still be like, medium attendance. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. And yeah, I saw the pictures. Shane went down there, so yeah, definitely people coming out from Vegas to come hang out. You'll love to see it. I'm also just stuck on like that Mina 1 comparison. I didn't even think about that. It's 1 speed with the opportunity to gain 1 versus 1 speed and it costs you 1 and it's stuck to mid. Like,
yeah,
what did Aoyama 1 do to or Aoyama 2 do in testing that made someone go, this can't be
right?
Like someone had to just get absolutely obliterated like 10 games in a row to them like nerf it back down or something.
I feel like at some point it must have been that the gain of momentum enhance wasn't once per turn, and somebody just came up with something that was just absolutely obliterating people. Was getting like 3 momentum on turn 2.
Yeah, they were just like weaving momentum. I could see that. My headcanon was that it was pay 1 life for 2 speed or pay 2 life for 2 speed. And just having a 7-hander who gives repeatable +2 speed to anything was too good, but Asui exists, so...
And Eraserhead.
Yeah, Asui and Eraserhead exist, and that can't be it. So yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe that's it. Maybe it wasn't once per turn, and it was just like too many enablers from having a foundation in the card pool, but we'll probably never know for sure.
It also really bothers me that he doesn't share any symbols with Momo 1, so like you can't even do like something cute with like quick creation to get that foundation. It has to. I don't think there's currently any other way you can do it. It has to be a foundation that you actually played.
So his symbols are what? Air, death, earth? He doesn't have life? I thought he had life.
Yes. Does he have... Doesn't,
no,
Momo
if
2
he had
has
life,
life,
I
though,
definitely
right?
would have played this deck. You're right. I'm going to have to check, because if he had life, I would have played Quick Creation, Aoyama 2. I keep saying one. Aoyama 2 for sure. What's his... it's evil. He's actually got Vegas symbols.
Oh, okay.
He's got some goated ass symbols, but they're not putting in that work right now. Air, death, evil. Those are some pretty good symbols, but yeah, that would be pretty shocking. Yeah, I would be surprised to see like a Asui 2, of course, like all these characters that people don't really play. But as far as something that has potential, something that could be worked on, something that could be iterated on and have a card gamer's chance, I would say, not a puncher's chance, but a card gamer's chance, is Uwabami. Uwabami has two different recursion abilities. I guess she has a recursion and she has a tutor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the 625, I don't think is that big of a deal for a deck that is tutoring like that. Like, Momo is 626, but she has, like, insane speed reduction, right?
Right.
So, I'm wondering if maybe Uwabami might be a deck that someone has put a bunch of time and effort into and cracked the 3 damage code, because she's definitely one of those characters where you don't necessarily need your whole lineup to be 3 damage, right? You
right.
Need to be, you know, and there is some benefit to specifically not running all 3 damages, because that bonus and that difficulty reduction, it stacks up, you know.
Right. Yeah, because it says your next 3 damage attack, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you get to kind of build up to it. It costs like your whole discard pile if you want to go that way. But, you know, that's a deck that I've been keeping my eye on, and Focus Punch seems tailor-made for it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Uwabami, like just to put the deck together in a glance, you have cards like Childhood Friends, which kind of mimics her own sort of recursion, but on your own turn. And cards that are both mid for Focus Punch and also a target for Childhood Friends is a card like Naval Laser Beam. It shares Earth and Life with her, and that's, you know, everyone loves Breaker, and people do like to unflip foundations like Childhood Friends, which makes it like a free poke. And so I'm really curious if a deck like that could show up. That would be something I could see someone play day 1. If it goes crazy and does really well, then maybe they play it day 2 going first, or they've locked in like, okay, now I just get to steamroll people as fucking Jiro going first or something, you know? Like, guaranteed go first Jiro seems pretty fine. But what do you think about Uwabami as like a potential candidate as a rogue deck?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. Nothing like immediately is coming to mind is like something that like actually counters that. So like you can't really like prepare for it other than just like, I guess, make sure you always have plus ultra on hand for when they play the focus attack.
Yeah, there's not a ton of ways to like hate on the discard pile, and we've not seen Confused really show up and be super impactful in a lot of decks. There's pretty much no way to flip cards face down in your opponent's card pool on your own turn. So like her recursion is kind of free. Focus Punch has like a +1 mid block. You know, there's some pretty good +1 mid block 3 damage moves. I mean, Texas Smash as well. So
yeah, I always forget that it is 3 damage because it never is for 3 damage.
Yeah, it's actually 7, but we gotta jump through a hoop to get there. So, and that's a great card for just like stacking up like a huge bonus for later. You know, so it. You know, it's usually like right in the middle of the string, and so you can just sequence really cool with Uwabami is all I'm trying to say. So I think that's what I'm looking for. I want to see Worlds branch out from the top 4 meta decks, and I would love to see it branch out into characters that have like this really good ability that has some sort of restriction, which is why people don't really play it, because if Uwabami could just, if all of her abilities could affect any fucking card in the deck, she'd be insane at that point. Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff I really want to see. Do you have last thing on the HLC, and then I want to move on to like the first year of UNIVERSUS essentially. But do you have any predictions for which player is going to win or which character is going to win the HLC? Is anything in your gut telling you like this is a shoe-in to win?
It's gonna be Jose. I'm gonna call it now.
That was a pretty good one, man. He hasn't won anything in person, so we'll have to see. Maybe if
That's true.
If Bromley brings a laptop and he just plays
and he just plays in a separate room from everybody else.
He just says, "Hey man, I'm gonna catch you online, offline. Then we're in there. See me online, offline." So that could be the way to go, man. Just
right.
little head popping up in a Skype window, little Discord chat going. I think. I think Jose is a pretty good pick. I think that's a pretty solid pick. Other than that, is there anything else you want to talk about with the HLC or anything that you have on your mind?
I don't know. I'm seeing it's just gonna be a great time.
Yeah, you're excited to go to Vegas. You get an all expenses paid trip.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually already planning on going anyway, just because I felt like if I drive there, maybe there's a chance that like one of them, their plane will get delayed or something. So I just want to make sure that if anything were to happen, I'm right there on deck, ready to show up.
Put me in, coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the worst idea, right? Like if you were the next in line, it wouldn't be a big faux pas to slide you in there. Let's talk about the first year of UNIVERSUS, because this is, I guess, like your second, third year with the game total, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember exactly when she got banned again.
So it was around the end of 2019 when I started playing.
Yeah.
So. Or no, actually, no. It would have been 2018, actually. I kind of had like a point where I was like half playing UFS and half playing Final Fantasy, so like I don't like complete, like I had touched the game, but I wasn't really like completely focused on it until it was actually like once we started doing like those online events with Legendary Wolf, like I was like really focused on the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was for me. I had come back from a break at the end of 20. Like I had basically taken a break at 2018 Worlds, and I came back for, I play in Worlds, right? Like you don't really quit the game. You just take a break from showing up locals and regulars, and I'd come back for a Worlds and just scrubbed out for the first time ever, like completely in teams, and felt really bad, like I let people down. But we also had someone who had like actually never played before on our team, so you take it with a grain of salt. Like you can only carry so far. I had William Bryan on my team. I don't know if he dropped like any games, but me and the other teammate were just like stepping over each other to try and win one. So, but then when it came to the COVID era, it took me a while to get into it because I didn't have a computer at the time. I was playing on like a shitty little notebook that could barely run TTS, and I accidentally left TTS open. I had like an emergency that I just had to get up and run out the door and go deal with, and I came back like 30 minutes later and TTS was open. It actually, or it was longer than that because I played 30-minute games, but like it was like 2 hours was enough to kill the laptop, just having it open that long. And TTS is not the most intense software to run.
Right.
So that should give you an example of like how tentative it was, that it overheated and actually fried the computer. But that was when I felt like I felt really close to the community. That's when I felt like I was really like a member of like more than just the Vegas community. That's when a lot of people had come together. I mentioned I saw your name a lot in a lot of those weeklies, and you were playing really interesting decks a lot. You were playing really cool stuff. I played against you with that Takeda deck, and you absolutely mollywopped the shit out of me and eliminated me from that event. So I was really excited when I saw you get the invite, but I really want to get your opinions on this first year, because you don't have as much of the UNIVERSUS bias, I guess, for lack of a better term to put it. You don't have like, I would assume at least not a ton of experience with like the older iterations of Jasco games. So if you had to, let's just say on a scale of 1 to 10, overall, everything included, Could you give me like an overall grade or a score for the My Hero Academia card game's first year of releases, competitive play, everything kind of bundled up together?
So everything bundled together. See, it's hard to say because like the release of like the design of the cards and everything. I feel like that's like at a 9. Like I don't think there's a whole like. Set 2 is a little bit. It didn't really like change the meta a whole lot, but like I feel like overall like it's pretty solid design from what I've been seeing. But then you have to also factor in like if we're saying overall like this is now going to include like delays happening and like well a lot of things that were outside of their control, but then also things that maybe like they weren't communicated as well as they could have been.
Right.
So
it's a lot to consider. I'm just not trying to copy. I don't want to copy the Rochester CCG report card format. I just don't want to bite their shtick.
So let's say overall a 7.
That's fair. That's a pretty good one. I think I'm a harsh guy. I think that if I were to grade on a curve for it being their first year, like for being like we've never owned a card game company before, we're learning as we go, a lot of our people have never worked for card games, stuff like that, I think I could give that a 7, right? Like grading on a curve and just saying like, hey man, this is everyone's, because God knows I couldn't do it, right? I'm not going to sit here and act like I could have made all these things happen, right? I can't sit here and act like, well, the cards wouldn't be delayed in a shipping failure with me there. So that's not what I'm trying to say. But I think for me personally, if I had to bundle everything together and just, grade it as is, I think I could give it just a solid standard 5 right in the middle. And I think it's pretty much what you had said. There's so many different things where, like, I think balance-wise, I think we're at, like, a 9. I think that, like, personal bias, cards I like to see and card designs I like, is closer to, like, a 4. It's closer to, like, a 3 or a 4. And so it's a little tough for me to get over that. But, like, when I look at, like, the way games play out, done a lot of commentary, watched a lot of these competitive events, video editing even, like, just editing videos for events, I have to, like, watch every fucking game to pick out the one that speaks to me or is interesting, right? And, as far as, like, actual balance and seeing, like, the way that people build their decks and draw cards and stuff like that, it's hard to argue that, like, the numbers speak for stuff being super busted. And even with the most reductive format that we've had with set 3, all of that is linchpinned on the fact that it was released right before Nationals. So when it comes to, like, release dates, Berlander's talking about they put set 2 pre-release on a regional and then did the same thing with set 3 and moved up the regional to compensate. Like, that kind of stuff does put, like, a sour note in it. And so, and again, that's the kind of thing where, like, if I'm grading on a curve because it's the first year, that's the kind of stuff we ignore.
It's hard to know, like, exactly how much leniency should we give them, because, like, if you just say Jasco, like, Jasco the company has been doing this for, like, a decade now, but how much of the current Jasco is the old Jasco? Like, we have new owners, a lot of the employees are brand new to this, like, how fair is it to, like, judge them for... Like,
I will say it is surprisingly similar. I was expecting there to be stuff that was shockingly different, and it's not so different, which really speaks to how difficult it can be to do these things. I think that's the main takeaway, is, like, how not simple it is to do this stuff with a small team. Obviously, we want to have, like, specific expectations and things like that, but I think the fact that, like, a small team of, like, 4 or 5 really dedicated individuals who'd been doing it for a while can produce, I would say, relatively the same, maybe not the same scale, but produce similar results when it comes to certain things, of, like, a much, maybe not much, but a bigger team of people doing it for the first time, right? I think it speaks to kind of how difficult it can be to get this stuff done. As far as, I guess, what would be, we'll start with the bad and then we'll work to the good so we end on a positive note. What would you say was like maybe the worst thing, like the biggest detractor? Like what was like the most awful part of the year for you?
So, like, on a personal level, this didn't actually affect me because I wasn't doing redemptions for this, but the fact that there was people that they ordered their cards in September specifically for Nationals and they didn't receive those cards until a week afterwards, I think that was a huge fail on their part.
Yeah. So, something that people might not know about me personally, I try to never deal in absolutes. It is... I don't know, a personal quirk that doesn't really mean much, but like I almost never try to tell people I'll do that. Absolutely, 100% I'll be there. I always, just the way I talk, and again, it doesn't really mean anything because if I say, yeah, man, I'll do my best to be there, or you know, yeah, I'll hopefully see you, you know, stuff like that. Like I'm really still saying that I'm gonna be there and do this. I'm still giving an expectation, but at the same time, that was definitely like just that was like not just the dagger in the heart, but that was the twist when they said we will prioritize these and get them to you, and it still didn't happen. And again, there's still like that third party, right? Like the shipping, the UPS,
right?
There's only so much you can guarantee, but that was rough.
Yeah.
For me personally, I think the thing that bothered me the most, and again, it's stuff where it's like kind of like you said, it didn't affect you personally, and I don't even know how much it affected me, which is why it bothered me. But it was really the pairing software.
Oh yeah,
it was all the things around tournament software, because if we're gonna talk about things that are out of Jasco's control, right? We're talking about like a lot, and that's. Again, we're trying to be very fair on this podcast where a lot of the stuff that people have issues with involves at least some element that is out of their control. Mm-hmm. You know, it is tough to, as a business, you know, deal with stuff like that and rectify it. But when it comes to the pairing software, you have to be like extra super careful because there's always going to be some element of like a technical issue that's out of your control. But we were having issues with things where like stuff is in our control, we just don't know about it, you know? Stuff is in our control, but we have different settings from tournament to tournament. You know, stuff is in our control, but we don't have necessarily like a set way to do things, I guess. And there's not like that communication, that transparency with players. Like, I should know from playing in how many tournaments I did what my first tiebreaker is before the tournament.
Right, yeah.
You know, can you tell me what the first tiebreaker is?
No.
I believe it's opponent match win percentage, but I don't think that's what was used for all of them, right? So
I've been joking around that they need to just make the first tiebreaker be just draw a random person, because that's just as valid as anything else they've been doing.
Yeah,
I would actually feel less bad if that's how I lost on tiebreakers. Was like at this point you're just being transparent about the fact that it's just a complete crapshoot.
Yeah. It oh man. So yeah, for me it was, and the pinnacle of it was the Orlando event, which were you at Orlando?
No, I wasn't at that one.
Okay.
I definitely heard the events that happened though.
Yeah, and it's tough because you're like you're sitting there, you know, and you're trying to get the information from the organizers, which they're just doing what they were told to do, right? Like they're doing everything right. And that's the hard part, is like they're doing everything right and it's still like coming out wrong, or at least it's perceived wrong, and we don't know why. We don't have that info. So when it really came down to it, it was just, that was like my biggest frustration, where it's like the tournament organizers aren't really super familiar with it. It's the first year though. Everyone's doing their first tournament, and like the different settings for each tournament is like almost up to personal TO, like whether they show, like just show the placings every round, just show the placings. I
don't understand why they don't do that. Like if anybody cared, because you can see the results for each round, so if anybody cared enough, they could calculate it in between all the rounds for anyway.
I didn't even think about that because I'm pretty sure at the one provisional where I played Momo and I like bubbled out at the end, I was like the worst of the bubbled records too, which I felt pretty good about because I was at a higher table number. But I think we were table 8 and like X2 or something. So like it was a surprisingly high table number. But at that time, this was after multiple complaints about the software, right? They made it so that the pairings each round were randomized within your own score or your same score. So like all the 1-1s get paired into each other, but instead of it being based on tiebreakers and like organizing it like a second score, I guess, to organize that, they said, okay, all the 1-1s will be paired randomly. So that way it doesn't, pair downs are effectively random, and I think it was to fix the buys issue, which is something else we can probably talk about with the software. So, like, when that was happening, like, it was very confusing where, like, people would ID at table 7 and not get into top 16. People, like being at that high of a table and then being the actual worst record, or the worst tiebreakers was just really strange. And it's, and again, it's everything is doing its job. It's working as it's intended, and you just can't understand why. So, like, it's not even necessarily when the softwares fuck up or someone inputs something wrong. But that specific Momo event, I'm pretty sure, and I don't know, and I would love to know, just to put my mind at ease, but that was the Battle Points event.
Oh, right.
Are you familiar with Battle Points, Zach?
I am now.
Right, I had to learn what Battle Points are, and I still don't know for sure, but if I'm not mistaken, Battle Points effectively care about how well you did in a draw.
Yeah, I guess apparently with Warhammer, a lot of matches don't fully end in one team getting completely annihilated, so you have to like find some way to figure out like how well did you do even if you didn't beat them technically. Right,
it's like how many victory points did you get in an hour if there wasn't like a total victory. And so the only way I could imagine that being counted for our game is total number of games won, or like the individual record. So I won a lot of my games 1-0 as Momo in a webcam event. Unsurprisingly, webcam Momo, not a super fast deck.
Right.
And so, and a lot of people were playing incredibly defensive things or really high health things. Like, I played 2 Ochako 2s, got smoked by David Pena playing one of them. I played I think I played 2 Mayhats. I kept playing 5-handers. I think I played 2 Mayhatsumis. I played against an Ochako who was down to like actually just play 1 attack and then build to 10 foundations and then use release to block all my strings, so I had a lot of 1-game rounds, and in my head that tells me like my battle points were really low. Like when we saw the battle points, that when someone was like, someone posted in Discord, they're like, hey, by the way, what the fuck are battle points? And they showed the screenshot. I was like, yeah, why do I have no battle points? Like, what the fuck? I did so much battling. So, like, that was, man, that's not the one I would choose to take back, mind you. The one I would want to have back is forever going to be the Vegas event. But, because I played Ochako 1 without Back Alley Haymaker. What the fuck was wrong with me? I was like, yeah, it's charged, but whatever. I'm playing range package. I was, like, addicted to Amphibious Ambush for no fucking reason.
Oh, yeah.
I was playing a Tongue Whip, and I'm like, well, I want to play 2 Tongue Whips, so I need to play Amphibious Ambush, and I don't have time for non-ranged. I was stupid. It's a bad deck. Showed in the results. It's the only regional event I didn't at least top 16, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how bad that deck was. So yeah, for me, I'd have to say definitely something to do with the pairing software. It seemed like it worked slightly different every time. It seemed like someone always had an issue. I guess most notoriously the buys issue from in-person nationals. I didn't hear about any for online, but did you hear about the in-person buys?
Yeah, about how I guess apparently Jacob got an extra buy, but they try to like pretend he didn't, and then it also ruined the pairing software afterwards.
So yeah, so it happened, and it was like, okay, well, I guess we can just move on with the tournament rather than trying to start everything from the beginning, and like it would take over an hour probably
Right.
to reset everything to get it back where and fix it and figure it out and blah blah blah. At least as far as I know about this software, right? Like, and so
I always felt it was weird to me. Like, why did? Because I've had the same issue in other games I've played before. Why is it not possible for you to just hit a button and you go right back to before this round started, and you can make whatever changes you like? Even if it's like round 5 or something, you should be able to go to round 2 and just decide you want to start the tournament over from that point if you really wanted to. I don't know, like like that would be really weird to want to do that, but like, why is it not set up so that you can like go back on previous saves?
my best answer for that is because if you are paying for custom software, you have to instruct someone to make it that way.
That's fair,
right? If you're talking to a coder, a designer, they're going to do everything that you ask them to make, and probably nothing extra. So, I don't know for sure, but that's my best guess. Is just it was an oversight in the ordering, or it's an adaptation from an existing formula, or that doesn't exactly compensate for that, but. I'm with you. Like, so what I did when I ran events through Challenge, I didn't actually know how to maneuver through it, and I day before just kind of briefed myself through. I actually had Jesse Cervini to give me a walkthrough on it. So what I did was I ran 2 versions of Challenge, and so every time I went to update a round, I left that round with everything like filled in but not completed, like not submitted. And that way, if there's ever a big fiasco from the previous round or someone's like, hey, we reported wrong, whatever, I could just go back to that one, change the right thing, and resubmit it. And, but I was only going back one round doing it that way. So that was my fix. Still not perfect, still not going to prevent certain fuck ups, but that was my idea of like I have a backup version of my tournament, because that's what I was afraid of, was a bad repair. With the Jacob Johnson extra buy thing, what made it so noteworthy was I think he had to get in on tiebreakers, and by the end of the event his tiebreakers were like just insanely wrong.
Yeah.
Like, at a glance, his opponent win percentage was too low or something like that. And, like, what was doubly weird is, so, like, as far as my understanding is, the extra buy that he got, or the buys that he got at that event, had counted for, like, 0 opponent win percentage, which is, like, the way some tournaments are set up. And then there's what's called, like, a super buy, where you have like a 100% opponent match win percentage or something. And so I think typically they're supposed to give like 33 or something, like, like minimum 33% win percentage. And like the buys would bounce between someone getting like 100%, 33, or 0.
Weird.
And so, yeah, like by the end of the day, he was like, this is weird. I beat all kinds of people with great win percentages who are in top cuts, and yet I'm the lowest ranked person on the bubble or something. So like that was, because that had to get fixed, and he got in, of course. But like, it all probably could have been avoided if we just had a way to go, hold up, something's wrong. It was pointed out to us during the round. Let's fix it. Now, it might have been pointed out after the round started, which is like a huge fiasco. Like, if you're 5 minutes into a round and someone's already on their second attack turn, or Tokoyami's like, send for lethal, and then all of a sudden 5 minutes in you're like, all right guys, hold up. Like, you definitely get some salty players. But yeah, I don't want to worry about having to play the software. I want to play my opponent. I don't want to have to complain or grill or investigate with a TO. I want the TO to just be like, yeah, it's working as intended. Not to go, well, it's doing its thing. What do you want me to do? Like,
yeah.
So, and again, that is one of the things where
it's just been weird because like every event, it's been something different. Like it's like we have different problems that are coming up, but it's always something. It's never even a consistent problem we're having. Like I don't even remember now. Like the very first provisional where John Stone was supposed to get in and he did. I don't even remember now what it was that caused that to happen anymore. I just remember all of us like rioting for him. But
the justice for John Stone, I wish I could remember. I'm sure actually, if you go back, I'm pretty sure to the Carta Magica Discord, you could probably search for it. Mm-hmm. You could probably try to find out people talking about it. I mean,
it was like they had like a weird setting on where it was like tiebreaker was like if you got if you won 2-0, that was better than winning 2-1 or something like that.
Right, that which is I think effectively battle points, but just in a different way.
They just didn't calling it that at the time.
Yeah, I think like it's just battle points without the battle point setting enabled. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know what? It might have been exactly battle points were the tiebreaker, and they just didn't have it visible. And then when my Momo tournament happened, it was the exact same issue, except they also like left battle points visible or something because they didn't.
Right.
That could actually be it because I'm pretty sure that's what battle points cared about for our game at least. So,
and then I remember in Vegas, I still don't even know what it was that happened, but all of a sudden, right before we were about to start, we found out that the entire bracket got completely redone because something somewhere along the way got messed up, and they had to completely change what the seeds were.
Yeah, so I've never cared to look into it, even at all the events I've casted, all the events I've watched Top Cuts in. I just know I don't want to stress myself out, but I don't think we've ever had like, at least in the beginning, we had like random brackets. Mm-hmm. We did not have seeded brackets, I think, in the beginning. I think which is antithetical to the whole idea of like the higher seed goes first, because you just, you know, how do you look at that on a thing? But like, I think that there was times where people were like, oh, well, I'm like 10th seed playing 12th seed or something, like, but again, don't quote me on that. That seems like, because I just remember someone told me in the first or second provisional, they're like, yeah, the bracket is just whatever order someone put it on in the image. It was not, yeah. So I don't know exactly about that. It was definitely not an event I was playing in, and I was just like, I'm not going to stress. But I think that did get resolved. That got brought up and then fixed. But I think you're right. I think the bracket had to be redone because they were like, no, you're not letting like a low, like you're not letting 10th seed get to go first in top 16. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because of the way it got paired. But yeah, maybe that's what it was. Maybe I don't think they actually went through with it. I think they showed the bracket and someone pointed that out, and then they fixed it the next morning.
Okay.
I think is actually what they had to show a new bracket. That stuff's hard to do, by the way. I've watched Brian do that on the fly at events. It's a lot of fucking clicking and typing and getting the info. So it's not exactly the easiest thing to do when you've got one guy doing all this stuff. Maybe two at most, depending on how big our crew is. So, but I will say it is, the software stuff is the kind of thing where if you grade on the curve and you give them the leeway that it is the first year, I think that is not the biggest deal. You know,
yeah.
I think from like a holistic standpoint, I think that the stuff that you were talking about is a bigger deal, only because someone said we're gonna guarantee this gets out to you for the competition. You know, you need those cards to play this competition. The stuff I'm complaining about is stuff that's like, well, I should have just won an extra game. Like,
right?
You know, the stuff that I'm upset about is stuff that like you almost have to go through. You almost have to have these problems to figure out where you want to go and what you want to do with your software, and it's not a cheap thing to just have people build you software from the ground up that does everything you want. So having like a decent investment into it, right, like for the first year is definitely a learning process. But let's talk about good stuff. We don't want to focus on just the bad. If you had to pick out one thing that was absolutely the best from this year, what would it be?
The best. Let's see. I was like all prepared to talk about negative stuff now, and I forgot it. So this is so great.
We can talk about if you got negative stuff you want to talk about, I'm down. I just I do want to promise people that we will get to the good stuff too. But
right.
If there's other stuff you want to talk about, this is the place for it.
Let's see. Now I don't know. Like now, my mind just went blank now.
Because I have the stream regularly in the YouTube, so I get all my venting. I bitch about all the stuff I don't like regularly. So.
Okay. I mean, the best is, I think, the card design. This is the best that, at least from like what I've seen from the game, this is the My Hero cards I think have been the best as far as like how balanced everything is. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that they've been really careful about like putting once per turn on a lot of character abilities. I don't like how in standard like there's so many abilities that are like, this isn't even good, but I might as well just do it on every single attack because it's free. Why not?
How many times has a Tim Keefe 2-Dot said, seal your one with nature? Just
right, yeah.
Just like it's my turn, but seal your one with nature just in case you have a fucking reversal. Like
right, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that. I think the balance has been pretty good. I want like more card movement. I want like more meta effects. I don't care about speed and damage at all.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole game is about speed and damage right now, pretty much. Like, almost every card that is super playable has, like, stun or a way to increase its stats just, like, on it.
Right.
Right, like... If your character gives a bunch of stats, you'd play a little less of that, like Tokoyami. But, like, even Frigid Heatwave... Even a card that is fucking just Pot of Greed is why you play it, has the chance to bing bong double its damage or more.
Yeah.
You know? Maybe the best example of cards that aren't like that are like Asui's attacks. But even like a Tongue Smack is just like, well, it's actually 6. You know, it also just has a +2 damage just to remind you like which characters are supposed to use it, you know? I think that's why I liked Unwavering / Denki, because I don't think I gave +1 damage to fuck all of anything except 1.3 million.
Right.
Like, that was the only card getting bonus stats in that deck. And I didn't try to play it ever. If you watched my video, my deck list video, or my deck profile, I said don't play it because it's super telegraphed. So, what's your favorite designed card?
Ooh.
Hard mode, don't say Box Full of Babies because it has a funny name.
Well, it is a funny name, though.
Like, it doesn't have to be your favorite card to play, just like your favorite design.
I really like Destined for Mainstream Success. So
card is busted.
Like, what you can do is it with Jiro, like, obviously it was meant for her, so, like, that's really nice as far as, like, you get, like, you use her ability, then you get to pick which card you're going to draw off of it. But also just being able to have that as a 1 difficulty foundation that's either, it's better than drawing a card. It's either draw a card if it's an attack, or leave that 5 check at the top of your deck.
Yeah. Sometimes I just want to show my opponent I'm going to pass my check, right? Like,
right.
I think it's super interesting because it's a reveal effect to make it work, or else you could just lie and draw the card, right? Like, I think the reveal effect makes it so interesting because there's so many times where I'm like, I could breaker this attack, and then my opponent shows like a 6, or they show just a 5 check, and I'm like, well, if I breaker now, then they just pass their foundation check. And
right.
Back when it was like Capture Net was a really popular card and not just Momo. I was playing against Maze. I was playing against fucking all symbol Mei Hatsumi playing Capture Net on me every turn. Like, I was like, maybe I should hold my breaker now. Like, little stuff like that. I played against I think it was a good symbol. Yeah, it had to be good. It was a good symbol All Might 3 in Top Cuts. And at Online Nationals, I should be more specific, Top 32 Online Nats, I played against a good symbol All Might 3 that sided into Toru 2, who gets, of course, to look at the top card of my deck, but they they used like a Destined early on in a turn to like keep their things going, and I held a breaker block until the very end, and I needed to breaker and have them check a 3, right? And it's the kind of thing where every time they're looking at the top card of their deck with Destined and they're just showing a 5, I'm like, I can't pop this off now. It's like not as important. It's not going to work out. Like I need it to like be a hard stop to that turn. So yeah, the Destined has so many layers to it. For a card that is a 1/5 with a single ability, it is both super impactful and has so many layers to it.
And also, it's been brought up to me that time that I checked all those 3s against Tim Keefe, I had a Destined on stage that I just never used.
No.
The whole time through, I was like, oh, but I want to save it in case I want to flip it for... Because I didn't have that many foundations out at the time, so I wanted to save it to be an extra damage that I could use later in the turn. Yeah. I didn't think I was going to check that many of them, so...
Well, and for what it's worth, if you had revealed the 3... drawn it and then still checked all those 3s but one less,
right?
Like, you know, if you had still checked the same number of 3s, you would just feel even worse, right?
Right.
You would just actually feel as bad. Yeah, pulling a 3. I've done that where I've ripped a 2 off the top. I like reveal sound waves and then immediately check a sound waves, and I just want to flip the table. So bad. Like. I've done a good job in my life, I think, of dealing with my intense rage. Like, I have intense, salty bits that are just all inside. It's all verbalized. It's all just inside. The only time I ever thought I might actually, like, fucking just disconnect and scoop from a game was when I revealed a sound waves off the top and then checked the sound waves to play a fucking... Blitz Rush, like right after that. So I like revealed the sound waves once per game, play Blitz Rush on a 6 and check a 2. So that's like the closest I've come. The only other time is I actually scooped early at online nats, which is really depressing. I think it was either against Ojiro 2 or against Tokoyami, one of my 2 losses in Swiss. They were hitting me with low attacks. Or no, they were hitting me with high attacks. And I had like a mid block and like 2 highs in my hand. And they were just like super fast. And I needed him to like tap out his character, I think, or whatever it was. I was like, I only get to block once, which is why I think it was Ojiro. And then they finally play a low. And I'm like, oh shit, which is why I don't think it was Ojiro, because if it was Ojiro, I'd just be
you knew there was a low coming.
Yeah.
It was Ojiro.
So, but at the same time, their string was like frozen / jolt freezer burn or something, you know. So like I don't know. No, if it's jolt, then it would have to be a Tokoyami. I don't know, but so I can't remember the exact string, but the string was like very similar between the 2 decks, and the main thing is I had waited for them to make it lethal with the damage pump. And then they, like, paused for a long time or something, you know? Because I am, like, the type of person who will put the card down, flip the control check that I can't pass before conceding. You know? And this was, like, game 2. The attack turn was taking a while. And I was actually, just for the first time in my life, I was like, I'll scoop for time. Yeah. You know, it's like a fucking Tokoyami mirror. Like, Tokoyami versus Ojiro. But our attack turns are so... lengthy, and like I'm actually so stressed, and I'm actually so like just annoyed at this, you know, string and stuff like that, and I'm up a game. And so I go to scoop, and the guy's like, oh shoot, I knew you didn't have a high block. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, well, I was gonna make it high with self assured or something like that. And I was just like, what? Like I literally scooped before letting him make it blockable for me, you know what I mean? So that's the only time I've ever just like early scooped, probably ever in a tournament, and it happened at the fucking most important one. And again, if you know what the kicker is, I looked at the top card of my deck, I would have failed the fucking block.
Oh jeez.
The kicker is he would have made it so I could block it, and then I would have failed it. So I don't know what would have made me more salty, but I was definitely mega salty. And then I saw that I went past it anyway, and that made it better. You know what I mean? Like, so But yeah, when he was like, "Oh, thank goodness, yeah, I was gonna make it," but I'd already scooped up my cards. I was just like, "Wait, really?" But it makes sense if you hit me with 2 high attacks in a row, and then I don't, and I'm not blocking anything, and then you play a low attack, turning it into a high makes sense.
Oh yeah.
They weren't like low damage moves, but anyways, that's enough of my rambling. So for you, it's just card design in general.
Yeah, I think just card design in general. The other thing that I was thinking of earlier, I guess it kind of got soured by what happened with Redemption anyway, but the way that they revamped the Redemption program, I think, was really good as far as making it so that you don't have to play for a year to get a play set of some of these cards was actually really good. I still didn't really understand why they made it so that the packs are now basically worth half as much as they used to be, but the way that they made it so that playing gets you so many more points, I think, was a really good plus for the game.
The conspiracy theory when they rolled out the change was that stores were opening so much product and then packing in the packs for non-foil versions to like low-key sell, and I think they knew this might have been one of the few things with foresight. If they had planned Chrome Rares all the way back when they made the change, they probably would have known that people were going to open just a ton of product for the sole purpose of hunting the Chrome Rare. And so when it comes down to it, like, you might not even be able to fill all those orders from people buying like massively in bulk, like at price, at distribution prices. And then, because that's the thing that's always been weird to me, is like the stores open the packs to get singles to sell and have stuff, but then like what happens to all their packs? They have more packs than anybody. So I believe that was the reason for the change, to compensate the players so they can still get cards at relatively the same rate. By the way, you can use the code ACE. I don't know how long. They're supposed to expire, I think, at the end of this year. I think after Worlds they won't be valid anymore, but they might replace it or continue it. But you can use the code ACE when you sign up for the UGN to get 50 loyalty points, which is enough for a promo right off the bat. So,
yeah.
Gotta plug that while I can. I don't think anyone has used my code, though. I think a couple people have used Hams and like 1 or 2 people have used Levi's, but
it's weird because, like, if you're at the point where you're watching this kind of content, you probably already have the account. So.
Yes. Yeah. And I specifically probably make the least new player friendly content, so that is what it is. But for me, my favorite thing, or like the biggest plus I have, is the coverage of events. You know? People have definitely complained, and there's definitely some dark spots on the coverage at this point with where we're at, but we've had coverage, which is something that we've never had before.
It's definitely an improvement from, I remember like events that I didn't go to for UFS, so like all you had was just a Facebook post that maybe would get updated like every second round or something.
They have this, and this is what I mean by like old Jasco is like similar to new Jasco in weird ways. Both versions of the company, or like both times over the years, somebody will start posting something on Twitter and they'll stop by like round 3. They'll just forget because it's not normal, right? Like it's not part of the routine. We've had commentary for like exactly one event before MHA that I've played at. Like it's like Worlds 2017. It's Sean O'Brien, and I believe his name is Ayn Nagapur. I probably can't pronounce that, but Ain. I teamed with him at that event actually for teams. He played Snake Man, and so he did the commentary, and it was cool. It was hard though. Like I was watching the commentary, and I remember a lot of people, we talked about it, and I think I've talked to Sean about it, and it's just like they had no preparation. They were not asked until like the day of, like Sean had to not make top cuts. I don't even think we didn't have like a feature match. We just had top cuts with Stream Day 2. You know what I mean? And so the coverage has always just been basically non-existent. It was really cool when they did do it that one year. It was Tim Keefe won with Pharaoh Man versus Turbo Man in the finals. And we got to watch that match on a big projector, similar to Dallas. It was fucking cool as shit. And we never did it again, and it always bothered me. It was always the thing I wanted the most, and so I was really happy to be a part of it. Like, I'm super stoked to be someone who does commentary for the game, just because, like, if you want your game to grow, I think it's a necessary component, which is tough because I recognize that I don't think just having commentary and just having, like, the production and stuff is necessarily going to draw in a new audience, right? Like, that is basically product for your existing audience.
Right.
Yet, at the same time, someone like me, I don't know if I would be considered an existing audience for Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic or Pokemon, but I watch those card game tournaments.
Right.
And I do not watch them on mute. I always need the commentary to be there and stuff, because we've had a couple of events where stuff's just recorded, where they just, they got the camera and you just see it, and the really old Jasco stuff, they just include all the fucking background sound. Like, you cannot hear the players, but you can hear, like, if you recognize the people, like, you can hear, like, Sean or Keenan Meadows in the back, talking. Like, usually there's people shouting because they're having fun doing something else while two people are playing, like, their grand finals match and, like, 6 feet away. So that was my biggest plus. I think that if you want to appear to be a big card game, to be serious, you do have to have a production. You have to have some production value. And so obviously there's a lot of stuff I need to work on and improve when it comes to my commentary and presentation. But that being said, I think that as far as like, the biggest complaint I saw with the coverage was, like, all the silly little details. And I say they're silly because they are by nature non-essential, but they do create a better viewing experience. Like, for example, we didn't have set 2 character card previews or whatever, like, in between games for, like, all of set 2. I think actually it was always just set 1 characters, as, like, the filler content. And so I remember at Dallas Nationals during Top Cuts, we had, like, the world's longest Kirishima 2 mirrors, and we were, like, I think a solid hour since we had been on stream, and I was walking over, I was like, hey, do you guys want us to go live for, like, a minute just to update people, like, little stuff like that was the main complaints I saw. And again, grading on a curve, that's absolutely something you have to forgive people, like, the first year on.
Right.
Like, typically what you run in those time slots, what you run in those periods, is sponsored ad content.
Oh, right.
Right? Like, typically during that time period, like, Magic the Gathering is running a Magic the Gathering commercial that they've already paid for and are using in other avenues, for, like, fighting games, that's when you run the fucking Red Bull ad. Red Bull gives you that content to run for them as part of the sponsorship. So, that's Evo and, like, Smash Summits and stuff, and CEO, if you guys are familiar at all, my audience, with those events, they've always done a really good job of, like, creating content for that. They have, like, their commentators, their content creators, their streamers doing little gag skits, basically skit videos in between and stuff like that. So that's what I would want to see improved. How did you feel about the production value in the broadcast?
From what I saw of it, it seemed pretty good. Like, the commentary itself was way higher than everything that there ever had been before, and it was nice also this, like, that there was some consistency of, like, it was a lot of, like, you, Levi, Andrew, like, that you guys kept traveling to different events doing it. So, like, being able to see the same faces on there was nice, instead of just kind of being, like, whoever happened to be available that day.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of different faces early on. They were trying to like feel it out, and that was understandable. It's tough because there's so many people who are interested in it now, and like as someone who has done it, you know, a handful of times and things like that, I do think that I think for your audience's sake, it's better to have regulars, like you said, you know, having those consistent faces. But at the same time, you do always want to have those opportunities available for new people, right?
Right.
So
Ose keeps talking about how he wants to do it sometime, but I don't think they'll ever allow that.
Well, and so that's the thing is like when it comes down to it, the community is so small that, for lack of a better term, gatekeeping stuff like that, like Jasco selecting people for stuff like that, can't be super easy. It can't feel really good because there's so many different reasons why someone would be good for commentary.
Right.
And there are a lot of reasons why people would be bad, you know? And like I said, like there are plenty, and so I guess I should say this first. When it comes to commentary, everybody's looking for something different. Everybody wants a different personality. Everybody wants a different take on things. Everybody wants a different style. And so when you are like, we have two people, you get two styles, you get two options, and they also have to gel with each other, right? Like,
right.
That's my biggest concern is when you're giving people like that trial run, you're giving them like that first time, having like the, how do I put it, like sacrificing sort of the what's the word I'm looking for? Not the friction. What's it called when you like gel with someone else? Not consistency, but like chemistry. Yeah. You're sacrificing like that chemistry that two people have done it before together might have for giving someone that opportunity. You know, it's one of those things where I never want to deny someone that opportunity, but like we also have to look at having a good production value. If this is going to be like someone who's interested in the game might check out the big event that's happening, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's been kind of rough for me because a lot of people have talked to me about it, and I'm just like, you just gotta bother Jasco. Like,
well, and maybe it would just help if they had like when the game was first starting out, they were streaming those weekly Wednesday events, and like that's not really, if you're commentating on that and you're not very good at it, I don't think people are going to care that much. So like that would be a good like trial run for people to do. Then that could be where like you get all the new faces that are just like doing their first attempt at commentating.
Well, and I think the only real, I've thought about that a lot, and that's definitely like the best way to start. The only issue with that is I think for your weeklies you want to cultivate a different environment.
Yeah.
So like it might actually work against you to get comfortable in like the wrong environment, right? Which is a super nebulous problem and like only one that you could look at with hindsight and figure out, right? But so I'd say my biggest failing this year, like one of my biggest regrets for sure, is for months. I'm talking about like since fucking July, my dude. I have made it like on my calendar, like put down a point to like stream weeklies. Like Andrew Holder started doing it for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something, and he had a list of people who wanted to do it with him. I got lucky enough to be like third on the list, and like I was excited and sad at the same time because I was like, oh shit, well I wanted to be the guy doing that, but at the same time I was like excited that someone else could and someone else was doing it. So I had plans to do it after nationals. You know, I had plans to start doing the Unfun Fridays, like broadcasting those and stuff. I actually have I think it looks cool, but it's just because it's purple. I make everything purple for my like my logo, but I have like a gameplay layout and stuff that I had Aspira send to me from like one of the first webcam weeklies and stuff, like ready to go. I'm actually going to transition to it, I think, if I can, just to show people. I don't know if I have, but so like, yeah, I actually have this right here for anyone who's on stream. Like, You can see it's voice of Sam Tate and Jesse Cervini because it was supposed to be us doing the UK, right? So I had this all set up, and it's just like my faded out neon purple vibe that I dig. So,
yeah.
So like I had plans to do a lot more stuff like that. I've had people who I was like, yeah, man, I'm going to start streaming weeklies and I'll get you on and we'll get you practice, get your name out there, you know. And like it just never came to fruition, and I feel really bad about it because that could be something that I could help contribute back, but the time never adds up.
Right.
You know. Like we talked about before, you know, Fridays aren't exactly a great time for me. You know, Fridays are like one of my worst days. It's before I would be busy all day until 5, and then I would try to make it to my locals and typically be like an hour late. Like, you know, it's like I have a 3-round locals and I always get a bye the first round essentially. And so that was just really tough to deal with. So if there's one thing I think I could really change, if it's not that Vegas regional, I think I would change having time to stream weeklies and just cultivate like an actual super casual, because even right now we don't have viewers on the Twitch because there's the Unfun Fridays going on, you know?
Right.
And I think that's one of Tam's most consistent points of content. And so I'm just double checking. Yeah, it looks like it's still going. Yeah, so like that's something that I should have been jumping on. That's an opportunity for anyone who's interested in commentary. Just fucking hit up Christopher Bromley or whoever's running the Unfun Fridays. Go in their Discord, say, hey, I'd like to stream it. I'd like to do commentary and stream the games. Are people cool with that? And you'll probably get access to do so as long as you're not like rude about it, you know?
Okay.
So, yeah, that's something I think that would help the game out a lot too, is just having like consistent commentary for locals, you know, because I don't know how much fighting game content you watch, but fighting game weeklies are some of the most fun things to watch because everyone's casual, everyone's having a good time, you know. They're usually not the most family friendly, like, you know, like language wise and stuff like that. It's usually like a super low key thing, but it's, you know, it's a guy streaming to his audience talking about the fucking game that they like.
Right.
You know, so that is definitely an avenue that I think we can explore into next year, is just getting more casual, more weeklies, more locals, boosted out there, put it out to the people. What do you think the odds are that you guys could get like a stream set up for Arizona? You guys have one of the.
We've been talking about it. We probably could get that set up. Like, there's always enough people that are showing up, so like having a featured table would be easy for us to do. We just need to talk to the store to get like an area set up for it. Is all.
What time do you guys normally run your locals?
So usually it would be like at 6:30 our time, so 5:30 your time.
Depending on which part of the year it is.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because you typically we had to reschedule this because you're busy with your locals Thursday, which I love. By the way, I respect that. Support your locals. Go to your locals. Game dies without it, right? But you know, like I'd be down to remote cast it. Like if you guys have a stream set up, and like I could just like piggyback. Do that, because Thursdays are one of the better days for me. It's why I do my podcast then. So maybe I could do like the podcast, and then immediately after that we stream the locals. I could bump the podcast up. So
yeah, that would work.
You know, maybe I'll have to get in touch with Ryan and see if that's something we could work out a deal with, because I would love to do it. I would absolutely love to do commentary for locals. It's just my locals are Tuesdays and Fridays. Everyone else's locals are like Tuesdays, Thursdays, or Fridays. And like Tuesdays is the brewing with the boys, so I don't get to do that when I go to my locals. Like I have to pick between that now, right? Like you know, so like it's just everything's on the same day all the time. Everything is just always happening at the same time, but yeah, so do you have we'll wrap this up. We've been at this for over 2 hours now. I don't know if you've noticed. We've been hitting it for a minute, but do you have an absolute favorite moment from this year with anything related? It could be a meme in Discord. It could be a game you played at locals. It could be, anything. What do you have a favorite moment from UNIVERSUS this year?
Let's see. I mean, it's got to just be the Vegas regional. Being able to make it all the way to second place was amazing.
Yeah. Do you still have your contender card?
Yes.
Yeah. It's
that'll be one that'll be hanging on to. I guess apparently the guy who was the whale that was like buying those for a ton of money, he's not in that business anymore. So I don't even know if they're worth that much at this point. But
interesting. Huh. I assumed it was for a personal collector. I didn't think it was like a business venture for him. So
I guess apparently he thought that he could like get all of them and then sell them for a whole bunch more later. But somebody was saying something about how like now apparently he doesn't have that kind of money anymore, so he can't afford to keep doing this.
Fair enough. Yeah, I never got in touch with the guy because I am not good enough to get first or second place, so I wouldn't know. I did see someone had slabbed a bunch of them and was trying to sell them, so maybe that's the same guy. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, he had mentioned I want to hold on to these, but now I'm going to sell them, and I'm like, I mean, you did slab them for a reason.
Right.
most people I know don't slab cards to hold them forever. Just saying. But yeah, the Vegas regional was a pretty special one. I was so excited for you because, like I said, you'd always been. I get attached to players that I think play cool decks. That's I was excited for Daniel Nelson because he's a new player who was playing decks I like. I was excited for you because you had played decks that I like, and so even if they are Broberg's decks,
right?
Yeah, I'm still in a Broberg list or two. So
most of a lot of like the ones on Legendary Wolf that we were playing, most of those decks came from either Broberg or Bromley.
Fair enough. Yeah,
and usually without them, like the one that I played with the Decayed deck from Broberg, that like I specifically talked to them about, but a lot of times I just like looked at decks that they ever played and just stole it.
There was definitely a point in set 2 where I was just like, am I going to play Bromley's list or Broberg's list this week? Like, am I going to steal a Bromley or a Broberg? And that was like the exact same time. I don't know if you saw the meme. I don't know which Discords it was in, but there was the Kevin Bromley meme. Because they kept, I think it was either on stream where they kept typing in like the wrong name for each one, or like they. I
think at one point they made a graphic for the bracket that had like Kevin Bromberg or something on it.
Yeah, it became Bromberg by the end of it for sure. Like it's a mimetic mutation, But yeah, it became like Kevin with a C Bromberg or something like Kevin Bromberg. So, yeah, there's definitely a point where it was just like, I'm either playing a Broberg list or a Bromley list. Let's flip a coin, I had both of them in the Discord when I posted my Momo list, and it was just like mostly Bromley's because it played a Future Charge, and he was super excited that someone had played his instead of Broberg's. But yeah, so it's just the whole regional, the whole experience.
Because that was I had never, even like when I would play other card games before, I had made it to top cuts before, but I never had made it like past top 8. So that was just a big thing in general. And then to make it all the way to make it to the grand final was the best.
Awesome. And then I'm going to say, aside from the Hero League Championship, because obviously you'd want to win it, but once the Hero League Championship is over, I think that officially caps off our first season. I know we had like seasons 1, 2, and 3, but like I think that's silly. The season ends with the championship,
Yeah.
So that'll cap off like our first season of competitive play. After that, going into 2023, what do you want to see the most for the My Hero card game?
I want to see some desperation abilities and like ways that like. From what we've seen of the Mr. Compress card, that's already a good start, but I just want to see more cards that, like, assuming that we are going to be getting Desperation, I want ways to turn that on, and the fact that he can just, if you really want to that badly, on turn 2, make yourself be 10 health, you can do it.
That button.
But yeah, I want to see something that's a really good payoff for doing something like that.
Interesting. That is not the answer I was expecting, I'll be honest, but I do respect it. So for those who are new to My Hero, you're basically asking for more effects like a daunting message.
Mm-hmm.
Right, where desperation is specifically being less than half health. And, in the past, it's a keyword like deadlock that essentially is gated by that. Once you're in desperation, you can play those abilities. Do you want to see the desperation keyword come back? The one where it reduces difficulty?
Maybe.
Or increases,
I
I guess.
I don't know if we really need it, though, because we already have Dropkick Slicer that's sort of a desperation ability. It's it's going to feel weird if we get desperation, then we still have that kind of effect coming around. So it doesn't even necessarily need to be desperation, keyword or having the gated enhances. I just want more things that are in general reward you for being at low health. Even if it's just more things that are if you're at 10 health, then blah 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 happens.
Yeah, as far as the keyword reducing difficulty, I think that one's rough, especially since you're specifically talking about enabling it, right? You're talking about Mr. Compress just being I can control when I'm in this range. I did think it was a little weird to have Dropkick Slicer wording and then daunting message wording. Mm-hmm. I thought for sure if they were going to go through with it in the future, all cards daunting message would be 10 or less.
Yeah.
Instead of less than half.
It's also really weird to me how daunting message is very much not desperation, because you could play it when you're not at less than half health. There just is no reason to do it, but it's just kind of weird to me that it's not. It doesn't have only playable if you're at half health.
There is. Oh man, it's so funny. There's so many abilities in My Hero that are it's 50-50 if it is or not. There's a few that say only playable, and then there's a bunch. I think the majority are requesting assistance, which doesn't say you can't play it. Yeah, and there was one point where someone did a requesting assistance, or I saw this multiple times throughout the year. It's a pretty common thing where people go to requesting assistance and ready something without momentum. And every time their opponent points out, oh, you can't do that, so they unflip it. Whereas, in any other card game community, people are, waiting to shark you on stuff like that. You know what I mean? In any other card game I've ever played at even the smallest, fucking... I don't think I might have played at a Vegas Grand Prix, but even, the smallest level competitive events I played for Magic, people are, seriously waiting for the opportunity to say, nope, you paid cost, you can't take that back,
Yeah.
And I've always, every single time, seen someone just unflip the requesting and no one say anything about it. So,
yeah, that was, I remember there was a whole big thing before about somebody brought up the idea about if you lay down a card, now you're locked into that's the card you're going to play. I know that that's technically in the rules, but I've had that situation come up 10 times, and nobody ever tries to actually enforce that.
So that it's funny you mentioned that, because I specifically made a video to boost awareness. It's called top 5 or 5 tips to avoid judge damage or something, and the other 4 are just there for patter filler content, just so it's not I'm specifically making this one issue video, but that's really what it was. And it's because all the old heads were so upset at a ruling given at a webcam weekly where Tony 2 went to play a card, thought about it, never made the check, picked it back up, and his opponent's well, actually he's attempting to play the card, right? He can't take it back. Even though literally no response windows, you know what I mean? There's no information to really be gained, but they had ruled that he had to do it because he sat there for a full minute with it on the table. But I went and asked for clarification, made the video, sent the video to the person I got clarification from to say, hey, is this correct? They gave me some feedback. I changed it to match their feedback, to make sure it's all tight-knit, okie dokie. And then I put out the video, and it's on a Friday, and then on the Saturday, the morning of the event, Tony just asked the judges, hey, is this actually the rule? Basically just referencing the Webcam Weekly thing. And they completely reversed their decision and were like, just... And they gave, like, not a hard answer, which is what I really hate, where it's like, well, you know, just don't take too long.
Yeah.
You know? So, Magic the Gathering has had stuff like that, too, where, you know, like, you can put the card down and you can, like, tap the mana, but if you don't take your hands off the mana and stuff like that, like, it's one thing. But I've also seen it where, like, if you choose a target, it's too late, regardless of what you do with your mana, you know? And I've seen some really salty stuff on stream, like in Top Cuts, where a guy is like, bolt your bird, and he goes to like tap the mana, and he doesn't even tap the mana and goes, wait a second, let me think. And like, no one calls a judge. There's just the judge watching, and he goes, no, you have to bolt the bird. You very clearly said I target. You know what I mean? Like, he's like,
yeah,
very clearly intended to do this thing. And he never went to, like, pay the cost or anything. It's just, he, you know, the card's in his hand, and he's like, bolt this? Wait. And the judge is like, no, bro, you targeted. So, like, games with targeting is a little different, I guess, you know?
It's kind of weird, too, because, like, so what happens if you did that, and then the reason that you back off is you, like, maybe you saw you had 3 lands, but you only had 2 lands up or something. Like, now are you, like... Or you just take judge damage, even though like now you don't even have the ability to play the card.
Oh, if you're saying you went to do
like it's now not possible for you to play the card.
So yeah, Magic has a specific warning for that. They have like a specific codified warning for like declared an action you can't pay the cost for.
Okay.
Which is also considered like the same level of error that a takesy backsy like that would be. It's just, I don't think you get a warning for the one where you actually pay for the card, but you do get a warning for the one where you can't.
Okay.
So, you know, but obviously if you can't play it, they don't force you to play it because you're not allowed to. But yeah, I've definitely seen some shit. But so let's wrap this up here. We're getting way stretched out there. So. You started playing 2018, 2019. We had some awesome times playing online through TTS and through like the online locals. You show up big early on with the Vegas event, but stay a little quiet, but you did just good enough to get that 1 point. And now, after 2 or 3 people haven't qualified, you get the letter. The last thing I want to talk about, tell me, how did you feel when you got that email?
I was still working at the time. I still had like 4 hours left of my shift when I got the email, which also, since I had heard the rumors already that there was possibly going to be people that aren't going to make it, and I knew that was the deadline they had to submit it by, so I was just hitting refresh like every 10 minutes on my email waiting to see if it was coming. It wasn't even necessary because Jelly actually sent me a message on Discord before I noticed the email, so it was just a complete waste of time to do that. But yeah, I was just in like even with me like preparing for that to be happening, the fact that it actually did happen, I was just in such a shock. I could barely even do the rest of my shift because I couldn't even concentrate anymore. Man,
that's awesome. Did you like? Were you telling like employees about it? Were you like coworkers like?
Yeah,
hey,
when I submitted
my play.
When I submitted my PTO for it, my boss was asking me if I'm going to quit if I end up winning the 125,000.
Are you though?
Probably not. I don't think that's enough to actually quit your job over. But
well, the cool thing is, when I was at dinner with Jacob Johnson in Dallas, he was like, "If I win, I don't have to work for 5 years." So, you know, I was like, maybe. I think if I won 100,000, I could stretch it for a lot more than 5 years. But I live super minimalist, like. I'm allergic to work, so man, I love that the visual of you like refreshing your phone over and over, and then you just get a completely separate message.
Yeah, because he didn't even start us originally. He just sent me a message that said like, "Hey, how's it going? Hope you had a good Christmas or something." But like, I knew that's why he was messaging me, because why would he message me on that day for no reason?
Right? Yeah, you were watching it like a hockey man. All right. Well, I'm super happy for you, Zach. Congratulations on qualifying for the first ever Hero League Championship with a total prize pool of $250,000 with First place taking home $125,000. Good luck to you, my man. I hope to see you very well. I do got to be honest, though. It does feel like a Jose Narono tournament.
Yeah.
It does feel like a Jose tournament. But I am still cheering for you. I'm cheering for all my friends. But that's going to do it for us. I'm Sam Tate. I'm the host of Orange Card, Blue Card. This has been Zach Pasley, one of the most outstanding members of the community, one of the most active members of the community, and one of the best memers. If you guys are not checking out the meme submissions, the meme contest for unfun stuff, they do it usually Tuesdays with the Brew with the Boys to go over the meme review. This guy is pretty much always on there and scoring points. Have you gotten a judge pack yet?
Not yet.
You're never going to. Bromley doesn't send this out. So, but that's going to do it for us, guys.
Maybe I'll shake him down for one at the HLC.
At the HLC, yeah, you gotta get everybody who's won a meme contest and just showed up with like baseball bats, beat them at them.
Well, the Dobby guy's going to be there. That's like the one chance he's going to get probably to ever get those judge packs.
True. Actually true, though. He's won quite a few. He's got to get out of them while he's here. But anyways, guys, that's going to be us for this week. Orange Card, Blue Card will most likely be returning to you at its normal time on Thursdays, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But if I work out this deal with Ryan Toro about casting some Arizona locals, maybe we move some things around. But definitely check out everything on the YouTube. Check out unfunstuff.com where you can plug in the code plugin to save 5% on all of your purchases. Get the best deals out there. I'm Sam Tate. This has been Zach Pasley. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.